In this week's episode, we are talking about the problem with porn. The problem with porn. So I want to give you guys a target statement for today, which is this. Porn is one of the biggest problems confronting Christians today. It distorts sex, taints the mind, and pushes people into sin they never would have considered otherwise. One more time. Porn is one of the biggest problems confronting Christians today. It distorts sex, taints the mind, and pushes people into sin they never would have considered otherwise. Like many of you listening, I have my own personal story, my personal dealings with pornography. It was crazy because it only started off as curiosity. I was about 18 years old and really watched it for a 1 to 2 year span. And as mentioned previously, it started as just pure curiosity, but eventually morphed into a consistent habit that became impossible to break. And the sad thing was, along with the fact that I was indulging in such a terrible habit, I was also a Christ follower at the time. And I mean this when I say it. I loved Jesus. I really did. I'd been following him for about 2 or 3 years at that point, and I thought at the time all in for Jesus, but I was also ensnared in the sexual sin that is pornography. And even worse, even after that 2 year span, even after I finally broke away from watching porn, the images that I saw remained. And even to this day, even though I haven't watched porn in many years, I still deal with the sinful consequences of what I watched in that season. And I realize as I tell that story that many of you listening have a similar one. In fact, stats show that nearly 40 million Americans watch porn regularly. Barna Research Group, which is like a Christian research group, did another study that showed on average 65% of men watch porn at least monthly, and 30% of women do. And then they did another study on Christian men and women that showed that 64% of Christian men watch porn monthly and 15% of Christian women, which is not far off the secular test group. It goes to show that Christian people are watching porn just as much as anybody else, and it's running rampant among Christian people. And as you hear these numbers, you might be asking, okay, like Nick, I get it. Lots of people watch pornography. But what really is the issue with that? Is that really that big of a deal? It's just me in my room, in my private time, minding my own business. I'm not hurting anyone. But I want to tell you today that's not true. You are hurting people, namely yourself, and also anybody you find yourself in a relationship with in the future or presently. You are hurting people, yourself and anybody you find yourself in a relationship with. Porn is a problem. And to affirm this, I want to give you guys 3 points on why porn is such a massive issue. Number 1, porn is a prime example of sexual sin. Porn is a prime example of sexual sin. Matthew 5:28 talks about it. It's that verse in which Jesus says, if you even look at a woman with lust in your eyes, you have already committed adultery with her. Porn is not just like this bad habit, it's adultery. First and foremost, beyond all the other points I'm going to name today, porn is a sin. It's a sin in the eyes of God. It is a sexual sin, and it is adulterous. That alone, for any Christian person listening to this podcast right now, should motivate you to move on from porn, to put it far into the rearview mirror of your life. It is dishonoring to God to a high degree. It is sexual sin in the most basic sense. That's number 1. Number 2, porn ruins your perspective on people and sex. Porn ruins your perspective on people and sex. Porn turns people into objects to buy and consume. Porn reduces people to the parts which can be altered, perfected, and really pimped out. Porn teaches users to dehumanize others as they buy into its degrading objectification. I want to tell you guys this. Sex is a good and beautiful gift from God for the edification and fulfillment for a married couple. I talked about that on What's So Bad About Premarital Sex episode. I encourage you to go back and listen to that. But sex is a good and beautiful gift. Porn makes it out to be a dirty act that is scandalous. That is not the proper perspective. It makes us think that what we see in that video is reality, and for the vast majority, it is not reality. It is ruining our perspective on what is real. And as a result of this poor perspective, we end up discontent with the real thing in our actual relationships, likely leaving us dissatisfied and frustrated in the future, in our future and current marriages and relationships. This dissatisfaction from pornography is what leads people to both unhappy relationships and unfaithful ones. It's what leads people to both unhappy and unfaithful relationships. That's number 2. Porn ruins our perspective on people and sex. Number 3, the last one. Porn is a fleeting pleasure at best. Porn is a fleeting pleasure at best. The euphoria and satisfaction that you get from watching pornography will only last for a moment, just to be replaced with the pain and guilt of what you have done. It leaves us feeling empty, unsatisfied, and yearning for more. It's like eating a sugar-coated poison pill. It's nice initially, but painful and damaging in the long run. The ramifications of watching pornography are more significant than the good feelings you get from it. Porn is a fleeting pleasure at best. And with all of that said, it's clear that porn is a problem, especially for Christians, especially for people who are like, I want to honor God in everything I do. Porn is a problem. Flee as far as possible from it. Don't mess with it. But also know if you've already made mistakes, that you are covered by God's grace and strength. By God's grace and strength. We need His grace so that way we do not carry the guilt of what has already been forgiven by Jesus Christ, and His strength to resist the temptation in the future. And lastly, keep an eye out for a part 2 of this episode in the next couple weeks, in which we will tackle how to find freedom from pornography as well.